Welcome, everyone. This is our next installment in Black and Proud. I am your host, Cindy Lilly, and today we have actor, director, producer. Now, let me scratch that. We have veteran actor, director, producer, Mr. Harry Lennix. Welcome, Harry.
It's great to be with you, Cindy. Thanks for having me.
So awesome to have you up here. We've watched your career on stage, film, and television over 30 years, and you're still going strong.
Yeah, I guess it is over 30 years. I really started, I guess, when I was about 19 as a professional. Uh, so I don't want to count how many years that is.
So I'm interested to know when your fans run into you because you have such prominent roles. We know you as Harold Cooper, Calvin Swanwick, Dresser. Like, have you just gotten used to answering to all these names when you're out at Starbucks?
Yes, I have. It's you almost know if you're in a black neighborhood or a white neighborhood, a young neighborhood or an old neighborhood just by what people associate me with. So, for example, black people are 95% of the time going to say the five heart.
Absolutely.
Superhero movie fans are going to say, Matrix or Batman, Superman, Calvin Swanwick and so forth. Now I'm the Martian Manhunter, so I hope that starts to be an association as well.
Yes, yes. And so I think most of your fans, probably over the last several years, know you as Harold Cooper, the assistant director on Blacklist for the counterterrorism department. Can you tell us about your character?
Yes, well, the very pilot episode of the Blacklist that's going back now to 2013 was Red Reddington, the number one person just about on the FBI's most wanted list, comes into FBI headquarters and turns himself in to me. And so I guess that's the Hoover building. I'm going to suggest, in DC there. And so we go back a long way. He's somebody that I knew, my character knew in the Navy. When I was working there, we worked together, at least in part. And so I've known him for a long time, but I'm on the law enforcement side, and of course he's on the criminal side, but we agreed to work together. And I sort of describe it as kind of the relationship that Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday had. When Doc Holliday was a gunslinger and a gambler and all of that, but he did work at the OK Corral in certain places with law enforcement, the U.S. Marshal. Wyatt Earp. So anyway, I think of it sort of like that, but set in a modern world where we're dealing with cyber criminals and all sorts of other elusive criminals that we would not otherwise be able to even know about, frankly, without the help of Reddington. In exchange for that, we give them a little bit of latitude. We might otherwise arrest them, but the good outweighs the bad, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your pilot episode back in 2013. You guys are in your 8th season. Congrats, first of all. Did you have any idea this show would still be going this long?
No. I mean, I thought that it would be, a hit. We knew early on that the testing for it, they test these things
and
little test focus groups and so forth. And we knew that people were responding to it. So we had a pretty good shot. But who knew? Like 8 years is the longest job I've ever had in my whole life, playing one single character. But that said, I'm delighted, and we just found out we're going to get to season 9. So
absolutely, congrats.
Yeah,
so you've been writing with Harold Cooper for a long time now. Where's the overlap between Harry and Harold?
Well, it's interesting as you take on a kind of role for a long time. I think there comes to be a kind of natural symbiosis, as it were. We find out more about the character, and so those things that you get to fill in terms of character traits, interests, and mannerisms, these kind of things sort of begin to bleed in. just a little, or I don't know if it's the character influencing me in my life or me influencing the character. There's really sort of no great separation. You know, actors like to think that they're putting on clothes like a suit, and I think that that's true. You know, you allow the trappings in some way to distinguish us between the characters that we play.
Yeah.
If that's an accent, for example, just that you mentioned it. Cooper, I play as a right-handed person, right? In real life, I'm left-handed. Cooper and I, though, have a lot of things in common, like, you know, our voice. I sound a lot like Cooper, and I could put on another accent or pretend to be from the South or whatever, but those things, I think that as you get older in acting, as you become more comfortable being yourself, you bring more of yourself to those characters, try to find those points of connection and go deeper in, so to speak. So the difference is I'm not in law enforcement, obviously. My brother was, but I was on the other, not that I'm a criminal, but, you know, I don't, I probably do things that Cooper would never do because he's married, I'm married. But other than that, you know, there are probably fewer things that we have not in common than we have in common, but I don't associate myself with the character.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's still very early, season 8. I think episode 6 just aired last week. Anything you want to tell us about this season we can look forward to?
Well, you know, it's as we are in the current season right now, I can't really give away too much. I mean, if you've been watching the show, you know that Elizabeth Keene in the past couple of episodes is not around, and she's actively working to undermine and now it seems even kill Raymond Reddington. So, you know, you got the two lead figures,
right?
Whereas they were reluctant, well, she was reluctantly working with him to some extent. They're now in a fight for survival against each other to some extent. So that is going to intensify. You know, we're going to go down. What the Blacklist does very well is it creates rabbit holes and intrigues almost out of thin air. So, you know, in order to find the answer to A, you need to, you know, we have to follow these paths almost to a point of infinite rabbit holes, like down lane B and C and D. So, you know, you can't solve A until you solve D. Right. And you can expand that, you know, a lot. And so I really like how they create curiosities that relate to the main story. In this case, whether or not Red is going to undo Elizabeth Keene or the other way around. We're still solving crimes and this kind of thing. So, you know, that's now the focus of the drama. And we're going to double down on that. So I can tell you that.
Okay. We're looking forward to this week's episode. So, you know, with your characters on screen, on stage, you played some very powerful, positive males. You played commissioners, sergeants, agents, attorneys, a pastor. Talk to me about the importance of role selection as a Black male.
Well, you know, it's very important, Cindy. I think this being Black History Month, for example, I think maybe next month, anyway, National Minority Health Month is coming up, these kinds of things. You know, to some extent, I don't think that there's a great distinction that our image of ourselves, our way that we perceive ourselves, or that we project to the world, deals very much with our health, mentally, spiritually. To some extent, those have great resonances physically. And so the ability to identify with something or someone who has self-determination, has a degree of power and agency, has the ability to exert some will over their environment and themselves, self-direction, this kind of thing is important. And I think that a lot of what has happened in terms of the development of my career, such as it is, as you know, there was a time when I was coming up in the 90s, for example, when it was a lot of gangsters movies and Boys in the Hood and things like that, right? And I did some roles, I wasn't in that movie, but I played gangsters and I played other type of people than I play now. But I think as I get older, the people who sort of survived this land, this world, this temperament that we are in as a country, have figured some things out, and with their seniority, with their advancing years and maturity, experience, they get put into positions of more authority. It seems as a natural thing. As you get older, you play people's dads or the boss or the CEO, the chief of the department, these kinds of things. So, but I've had my share of things that were not, characters that were not necessarily virtuous. I used to play a lot of villains, and even things like Mo Money or whatever. I was a bad guy, a bit of bad guy, and a couple of other things. So, it's just, it's mostly fun, but I try to be conscientious about what I say yes to and what I say no to. I could have probably had a bigger career or something if I were willing to take certain roles that I thought were stereotypical or not putting us in a dimensional light. I don't mind playing a bad guy or a villain or a sick, demented person if the context of that person has a higher message. You see what I mean? Right. In my own movie, for example, I play Pontius Pilate, who, at least in the view of most Christians, was a bad guy. But many historians think so as well. But so he's the one who sends Jesus to death. But when I played him, it was in a movie that celebrated the life and message of Christ. So playing a bad guy in an otherwise virtuous film, I enjoy that. I played the devil in things, for example.
What is your motivation or your driving force for all that you've contributed to the entertainment industry and for the Black community? What would you say is your motivation?
Well, it's an interesting thing. I just wrote an essay about this. Hopefully it will be coming out in the next several months, I would imagine. It's a compendium that's been put together by my friend Neil Lester at the Department of Humanities, Arizona State University. In any event, the question that I looked at in the essay is what the actor, I call it actorvism. Can an actor be an agent of change, as it were, from the social justice point of view? What is my duty to that? Am I doing it because I think I'm virtuous when I'm in a business that is by no means virtuous, that relies on our ego and, people get outrageous sums of money sometimes and do all manner of things in this industry. And can I even make claims that I'm doing something that benefits the industry or my people, in a certain way? But I think that the answer to that is yes. We're put into a material world that is imperfect in many ways, that we try to do what we think is the right thing, rather than say doing some evil thing. I'm creating something, correct? But what is that I am creating? Can that in itself be a contribution to the struggle, to the cause, to the field of endeavor that I'm in this case, acting? So, and I think that the answer is yes. But those two things have to coincide. They have to agree that the work that I do reflects the end that I am pursuing. Do you see what I mean? So that the work itself, I cannot, for example, do, say, exploitative work where I'm demeaning people and then go out, and making statements that it's not contributing to the betterment, that is not beautiful in any way, that is not truthful in any way, and then go out and say I'm doing God's work and that's that guy and that's where I get my living. But in reality, so the two things have to line up. You see what I mean? Yeah. So I try to do my crusading, as it were, through the work itself.
Amen.
Or at least try to do no damage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? in the work that I do. Right.
We appreciate it for sure. You are from Chicago, proud Chicagoan. You've
Yep.
been filming there, stage work there, and you have this wonderful project that you're doing, the Lily and Marcy Theater. Can you talk about that?
Well, thank you for asking about it. It is what I, just on the topic we were just talking about. Can what is our duty? What is our obligation? What is it we do good, as it were? And I don't, but this is my contribution, I hope, will be the helping to bring about an institution that can perpetuate the kind of images, the celebration of the work that's already been created, to help perpetuate that work, to teach while we are demonstrating the highest forms of artistic performative contributions of a Black race.
Yeah.
African diet. That is to say, I want to create a Carnegie Hall for Black culture in Chicago, where a lot of that was born. So when you think of, the greatest violinists in the world or whatever, you think the greatest dancers or whatever, you think Carnegie Hall. That old joke, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. So we want to have this be a destination where when people say, you know what, I've never seen Alvin Ailey or the Dance Theater of Harlem or the performance even that we do on the north side of Chicago. If I wanted to go see an excellent piece of work today from the culture, I couldn't do it, and it would be very rare to find it in the neighborhood where much of that was born. And so we want to reestablish the Mecca of the South Side of Chicago. If you think excellence, I want to see the definitive Black gospel choir, the definitive Black dance troupe, the definitive Black plays, movies, television show. Where could I go and consume that? Where can I go and just immerse myself in the richness of this culture? And I want people to think of the Lily and Marcy Center. And I want them to think of AMPA, the museum that we hope to chronicle and archive all of the, there would be a joint endeavor, but, so the museum would be there to house the collective history, and then the theater performance arts center would be there to display it in its forms.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit more about that, because I know in there, Chicago, they have the DuSable Museum for African American History, but what is special about the museum that you guys are doing?
Well, the DuSable Museum of African American History and Culture, I think, the DuSable, we call it, is just a few blocks away. It's on the same street. But, that's a kind of collective history of the entire collective experience of Black people. That is not dedicated to the performance history of it, the expression of it culturally. There is no such place where people can go. Of course, even if you go to the Smithsonian that they newly built in DC, the section on Black performance history is about this big. So you'll have it's a stamp on the envelope of these institutions, so to speak, but we want it to be the subject of what is in the envelope. So we want really to the way that the people have expressed themselves, which has sort of gotten us through this experience here in the United States of America. The art that produced is, I think, worthy of its own study and archive and display, exhibitions.
Right.
How do we see that? Everybody can't get to New York, for example, or get up to Harlem, or get to the North Side, up to Jackie Taylor's Black Ensemble Theater, which is wonderful. But we want to show that there's we have theater companies, we have dance companies, we have but where can all of it live together in one place? Just like, as I said, Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center. The Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts here in New York is it was just a house that was a collective a central space for already existing companies like the American Ballet Theater, the Metropolitan Opera. Those were already existing institutions and companies, but Lincoln Center gave them a common central place to do that. And of course, they have something like 3,000 events per year. There are places in Colorado. There are places in all over the country, Aspen, and place where you can go to one place and see all of this great work. And right now, I would make the case that there's no state-of-the-art viable place on the south side of Chicago where this particular subject is studied and housed.
And we talked about location. Why specifically Bronzeville?
Well, Bronzeville was the birthplace of a lot of these the great exemplars. You know, Louis Armstrong lived there for a while. When Duke Ellington and the people would come to town, there were places on the south side. If they're going to play downtown, they would make sure to come to Bronzeville and play. There are similar places like on Central Avenue in Los Angeles. There are obviously Harlem. You know, there were places, but in Chicago, it was Bronzeville. Not just Bronzeville, but that was a central hub. And so we're trying to restore it to its former rightful place as as the Mecca, so to speak, of these forms of art and expression.
Well, I'm excited for it to get off the ground. I hate that COVID probably put a bit of a damper on it, but once we're ready to go, we're going to be there.
Once it's ready to go, you know, COVID really it delayed a lot of things, but the museum won't be ready. We're going to start developing. It will be shovel ready. That is to say, we think in September. So we're working on getting it all the ducks in a row. So COVID actually, as it continues to decrease, maybe it'll coincide with when we can open. So I think that we'll be okay.
So I want to get back a little bit to you on screen because you have a wonderful movie coming out, Zack Snyder's Justice League. And you started off in, I think it was Man of Steel, where you were Calvin Swanwick, and you were at that time the general, and then you transitioned to the Secretary of Defense by the time we were at Batman versus Superman. And now with this movie coming out next month, we see you as the Martian Manhunter. So were you as surprised as your fans were when it was revealed that this is your secret identity?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. Actually, listening to you go through the what can we call it, promotions, as it were. So, you know, I start off as general, then I go to Secretary of Defense. Now I'm a superhero. What's next? Where do I go from there? So, but yeah, I was shocked. I have to tell you, very pleasantly so, when I found out that Swanwick was going to be revealed as Martian Manhunter. I was originally scheduled to be in the movie Justice League. That would have been my third, you know, in that trilogy. But last minute script changes, you know, changed things up. It had already been negotiated with the blacklist. I was all set to go, but you know, things happen in life and in the world, and changes happen all the time. So to be reinstalled in it, as it were, is great. And I'm a big Zack Snyder fan, so you know, I'm over the moon about it, frankly. And those are the kind of surprises. You know, it was a happy surprise. Who knew? I wasn't expecting it. You know what I mean? I was minding my bed. I was happy to see the movies, and just glad that he was going to get his chance to, you know, have his cut out there. I was excited for him and about that as a fan. But now, you know, to be a part of it is a great blessing. I don't take it for granted. And as I tell people, you know, somebody recently, as I said, if I'm in it for 2 seconds, I'm going to be extremely happy.
Absolutely. We're all looking forward to it. This is the first time that we've seen the Martian Manhunter on a live action capacity. So we're excited that you are the one chosen to bring it to life.
Imagine how I feel. Yeah, me too, very much.
So we're going to show the trailer in just a little bit. But before we do that, I have some fun facts I discovered about you. I dug up, so I want to talk to you.
Okay, right on.
So first, you went to school with Stephen Colbert.
Yeah, sure. I did. We were at Northwestern together. For whatever reason, I thought he was a year behind me, but I guess that's not true because he was really he did a lot of the improv stuff. We had a show called Meow and these things. I've never been considered particularly funny, so I was not in those shows that he was doing. But I was aware of him. We were friendly. I would see him on campus and so forth. And we didn't go hang out and have beers, but he was a good man, and I liked him a lot then, and I like him a lot now. So yeah.
Absolutely. And it is still Black History Month. I saw that you are a member of the Divine Nine, Omega Psi Phi. Yes.
That's right. Rue, where are you? What are you, sis?
No, I said you are a member. I'm not there.
You're not, okay.
No. Maybe an honorary member at some point in my life, but no, I'm not.
Yeah, good. Well, it's never too late. Never too late.
Yeah, that's what they keep telling me. And at some point in your studying, you wanted to be the first Black Pope.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, by the way, I think that until like 1,000 years ago or something, priests could get married. That's only about 1,000 or so years old. You couldn't do it, so it's too late now. I'm married. But I think even at a certain point, you age out of going into a seminary or finishing through the seminary. But I was in a seminary as a young man, preparatory seminary, high school.
Okay.
And I had every intention of following through, but something happened along the way. As they say, a funny thing happened on the way to the forum is a play where a funny thing happened on the way to the seminary. I did a play and I was very curious about a life as an actor. And you get assigned as a priest and you sort of have to go where they tell you to go. And so I had a choice to make in a way. I'm sure you could be a priest now and act on the side and things of this. And you could probably have done that. I could have done that then in theory, but there's a dedication requirement. There's a reason why priests don't get married. And that is because the church wants your total commitment to the service of the church. And there's and so I think it would have been very difficult to be fully committed as an actor and then fully committed as a priest. So that said, when I start anything, I want to get to the very height that I can go. I mean, you can't go higher than Pope, really. Although, of course, there are two popes, as it were. There's the Eastern Orthodox, the head of that church, and then, of course, the Pope of the Bishop of Rome, who we call the Pope. So that said, I guess in theory there are two positions, and perhaps in the Eastern Orthodox tradition, you could even be married. I'm pretty sure that's the case. But if that's true, it's not too late for you.
So this wasn't a flippant idea. You really had given this a lot of thought at one point.
Yeah, I mean, it was a slim chance. Kind of like buying a lottery ticket. But by the way, they just named the first Black cardinal in American history. Mm-hmm. His name is Wilton Gregory. I think he might originally be from Chicago, but he was the bishop out there in D.C. And now he's, in the College of Cardinals, and he's the first brother to have done that. So I'm very, proud of that that's the case. And of course, now he could be a candidate for the papacy. Now that he's in the Cardinal College thing.
That's what's up.
That's what's up. There are many people, by the way, say they think the next Pope is one of the very soon is bound to be in Africa. I think the continent of Africa, I think, is the largest population of growing, the quickest growing population of Catholics, I think. Oh. And it was very interesting, the Catholic Church itself is the largest provider in the world of education and healthcare. So, you know, I know the church gets kicked a lot, deservedly in many, many cases, of course, but, you know, there's still people out there that who are doing God's work and doing it the right way. And those are the people we should, in my view, we should talk about them.
Absolutely. All right, last question. Tell me if these two words mean anything to you. Candy Crush.
You know, it's my, I don't know how to stop it. Which I love candy in real life, and cookies. I have a sweet tooth that won't quit. I'm off of it right now. I'm like really behaving myself.
Okay.
But somehow playing this game is like a proxy for it. Like there's something satisfying about the sounds of it, matching the it completely. I've consumed hours at a time playing this game. I have it on 3 different devices and so forth. I'm not. I think there are bigger addicts to it. I'm certainly not one of the top players or anything, but it's fun. It helps me to think and to sort of decompress a little bit. So it's, you know, when I'm in LA at home, I have a pool table, and just looking at patterns, these kinds of patterns geographically helps me to order my own thoughts, because my brain is a jumble of impulses really that just come flooding in most of the time. I'm stimulated by thoughts of this, and, you know, so it's something that coalesces and has a pattern, helps me to sort of figure that out. Even on the piano, like I have the patterns, the progressions, you know, the thinking out and logical moves and steps. I guess it really, if I were actually a smart fellow, I'd learn chess, you know, but maybe that's next. Maybe I can get off the Candy Crush and start playing chess.
You know what? Thank you so much for saying that, because I play pool as well. I'm a bit of a pool shark. And I tell people, when I have to concentrate on those angles and setting up the next shot, it just calms down the brain waves. Like it's awesome.
Well, we'll have to play sometime. What's your game? What's your favorite game?
I play 9-ball.
Oh, wow. Okay, right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
And I'm a
one person's game right there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Everybody check out Zack Snyder's Justice League, coming to a home theater near you March 18th, HBO and Max. Thank you, Mr. Lennix, for being with us today.
Great being with you, Cindy. Keep doing the good work out there.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.